The door is always open, I guess, as opportunities come. I I will certainly be looking at other ways to be able to contribute.
Roger Christensen has served as the Bonneville County Commissioner for the last 30 years, and he is stepping down at the end of this year. There are two candidates running in his place. They include Doyle Beck and Carl Casperson. But meanwhile, we're happy to be chatting with Roger about his political career. Roger, thanks for taking a few minutes today.
Well, thanks for reaching out. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So let's start with that beginning question. How come you're not seeking re-election?
Well, I visited with my wife and we had always kind of set in mind, of course, in politics, you're only guaranteed your job till the next election, but I had survived 8 contested challenges and didn't know if there were going to be any more, but we just felt like 30 years was a good time to retire and spend more time in other service areas and chasing grandkids. The county's in as solid a fiscal position as it's ever been. You know, what got me into office was a situation where the county was just on the verge of not insolvency because it's a government, but being bankrupt because they were spending $1 million a year more than they were bringing in. And so it took quite a few years to kind of realign that and do it in a way that you didn't lose all your employees. And we built that back. And now we operate under a philosophy of put aside a little extra money each year so you've got reserves to operate in tough times, because the things we provide are essential services and they're needed in everyday life, you know, the public safety and things like that. And if you ever have a disruption, you want to be able to at least provide those type of services.
I was going to ask you what your proudest accomplishment is. Is that it?
That's one of them, is getting the county in the position it is. Our reserves are probably some of the strongest of any county in Idaho. We've taken that money we save on interest and been able to multiply it. And now we've been using that to accomplish a lot of the projects we had planned on. You've probably seen several road improvement projects because the growth has been explosive. You know, like 45th East, and we'll be doing Iona Road and next year, and then Ammon Road widening out by Bonneville High School, and some of the backlog of things that the funding is so limited. You know, we've tried to have the self-discipline to set it aside and then just be able to pay cash for it, not getting into debt.
So is it accurate to say when you leave office in December that you're the longest serving county commissioner?
I think that's very accurate.
Okay.
And
So
you know, it's kind of humbling that you could be given that much confidence by the taxpayers. You know, like I say, I've had 8 contested elections, and you know they've always returned me to office, and we try to respect that and continue to serve. I've always operated under the philosophy when we came in office in '95, things were pretty tough, and I was kind of young. I was 41, and you get a little discouraged. But I came in with Commissioner Bill Shurtleff, and the best lesson I ever learned that I've stuck with is when you get discouraged, just keep your eye on the ball. You know, and that's getting the work of the county done, and don't worry about getting reelected. So that's the way I've operated, and it seems to have worked.
going back to 1995, when you first got into this role, what was it that made you want to run for office that first time?
I think it was, you know, I have an accounting background and used to teach at the VOTEC back in those days, you know, and just the fiscal responsibility. My wife always jokes that I treat the county money the same way I do our budget, which she sometimes thinks I'm a little too frugal, but you know, it's paid off because now we can retire and enjoy the lifestyle she's become accustomed to.
Over the years, do you have like a favorite project you've been involved in as a county commissioner?
Oh, Can I touch on two or three? 'Cause
Sure.
there's been a lot of them.
Sure.
You know, of course, when just recently, and Bryon Reed kind of oversaw that project, 4-H for a community. We were able to pay cash for that, raise some donations, and now it's self-sustaining. I've been involved in appointing 13 of the other county row offices. The way counties are organized is by the Constitution, and we're not the boss like everybody would think. Each of the individual department heads or elected officials are constitutional officers. So it's important that you work in a spirit of partnership to get that done. But when we chose those, they're required to be Republicans, of course, which we've been pretty strong Republicans all our lives. But we would interview the candidates that met that qualification and try to select them based on their abilities. And I think that's worked out very well, because we've had several of the prosecutors go on to be judges. And, I think we've got as good a group of elected officials right now. The two commissioners I'm currently serving with, we've got a lot done because there's not infighting, and we just focus on getting the services to the constituents. The other thing we do is I've been sitting on the magistrate commission where we select judges, and I think I've been involved in selecting 17 judges. So you're here that long, you get opportunities that normally you might not have.
At the end of this year, you're going to be stepping down. What do you miss most?
You what?
What are you going to miss most about this role?
I think the employees and the people we work with, because it takes, we've got some awful good employees, and they've worked with us in the downturns. 2018 was kind of a downturn year, and they toughed it out with us.
Anything you want to say to Bonneville County voters?
Oh, just thanks for the opportunity. I mean, it's an incredible blessing to be given that chance to serve and try to learn from it. We've learned an awful lot, and we're still learning, but very few people get that type of an opportunity, and I've been given that in abundance. So
whoever your successor ends up being, do you have any advice for that person?
Basically operate with some of the principles of transparency, make the decisions to keep your footprint in their lives as small as possible, keep government smooth. We don't try to create a big bureaucratic process for them to get through. And, we kind of call that the county way. Just keep it as simple as you can and get the job done quick, and treat everybody the same, because all your constituents, obviously the Republican voters are the ones that put you in office, but the services we provide are for all Democrats, independents, all walks of life. And so just treat them all the same and have a reason when you make a decision, because not everybody's going to be happy. But if you can give them a good, solid reason, that they'll understand, even though they may not go away happy. Just things like that. Don't get caught up in the contention that is out there in politics today. Because there's way too much of that. You see a couple different factions, and one side hunkers down against the other side, and and there's some extremes on all philosophies. But there's probably a good portion of the citizens here that are somewhere in the middle. You've got to be willing to work with people for a solution.
Bryon Reed has served as the Bonneville County Commissioner for the last 8 years. He is not seeking re-election, but there are 4 candidates running in his place. They include Deborah Hackey, Barrett Hillier, Michelle Mallard, and Alan Steele. But we are happy to be talking with Bryon Reed today about the last 8 years in office. Bryon, thanks for taking a few minutes with me today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So let me start with, what's the reason you've chosen not to seek re-election?
When I was asked to run for commissioner, I kind of determined then that I would have 6 to 8 years in order to serve in that position in the county, and this will be 8 years when I finish. I am at a point now that I want to get back to my own personal business interests and get back to helping however I can on our growing farm. And then, of course, start enjoying grandchildren a little bit more.
So it is worth noting you are Alan Reed's brother. So you grew up working at Reed's Dairy, but you mentioned you have a farm. So what is the name of your farming operation?
Yeah, it's Reed Farm. And when my brother Alan and I became of age to go into the business, it was split at that time, and Alan took the dairy end of the business, and I took the farming side. And so I've just continued to run and grow that since then. When I became commissioner, my son Derek took over management of the farm and has continued to run it as Reed Farm.
As you look back on the last 8 years, what is your proudest accomplishment?
Well, I would say the opportunity to be able to work with so many other great elected officials here in the county has been one of the most rewarding things. We have a tremendous group of elected officials in Bonneville County that have all been great to work with, and working with all of the employees in Bonneville County. They just come to work each and every day ready to support the county and do what they can. And so it has really been rewarding to work with all of those individuals. Project wise, when I first came in, I was asked to develop the new Bonneville County Fairground. Commissioner Christensen had been holding that project at a time when we were able to do it. And so he asked me to take that on. I saw the great need that we had. At that time, our fairground was on 5 acres that was surrounded by a lot of growth, and it was actually becoming somewhat dangerous to continue to operate the livestock portion of the county fairground there. And so I took that project on and developed now what is 60 acres of Bonneville County Fairground just south of Sandy Downs. That consists of 6 separate buildings that we've been able to construct, and our growth has been just tremendous. We've nearly doubled the amount of youth that we're able to serve now at the fairground. The buildings are busy nearly every day of the week, year round, with various community events. Those buildings are leased on a nonprofit basis to be able to support all of the costs of the fairground. And it's been really rewarding to see how that growth has served in the community.
Going back to 2017, what was the reason you decided to run for county commissioner?
Well, I was currently serving on the Bonneville County Planning and Zoning Commission. I had been on that for 10 years, and Commissioner Lee Staker was getting ready to retire. And he approached me and asked me if I would consider running for his position. I had never considered it before then, but in discussions with my family, we just decided that it was a good time in my life to give back some community service. And so I agreed then to go ahead and seek election that in 2 years later. My great-grandfather moved to this county in 1914. And so our family has been out on the west side a long time, and the community that we live in is just tremendous. And I really do enjoy finding opportunities to be able to serve in some way.
Well, I appreciate you taking a few minutes today, Bryon. Wish you luck with your future endeavors. Do you have any ambitions to get involved civically again?
The door is always open, I guess, as opportunities come. I will certainly be looking at other ways to be able to contribute.